It is my hope that you are doing well. Welcome to this video, whereby we are going to talk about intervals as used in music. An interval is the distance in pitch between notes. And we say that the pitch is the position of a single sound in the complete range of musical sounds. The position of a single sound, like do, re, mi, a single sound, the complete range of a musical sound, is what we are referring to, the pitch. The size or the length of an interval is measured by the number of letter names contained in the interval, including both the bottom and top notes. For example, we can have CDE, an interval of CDE. This interval is a third because we are including both the bottom notes, which is in our case we have C, and the top notes, which in our case is E, not E. Remember we said the higher the note is placed on the staff, the higher the pitch or sound. Accidentals are used to determine the nature of an interval, which we will see much later. So an interval is always calculated from bottom to top, with the lower note counted as 1. The way we have seen in our example, the lower note in our case is C, so we count C as 1, D as 2, and E as 3. Therefore, our interval is a third. An interval that passes an octave is considered as compound interval. Remember the solfege, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, forms an octave. An octave, as we had said much earlier, is composed of 8 notes, with the 8th note sounding exactly as the leading note, that is do. But now at this time it is much higher in pitch compared to the first solfa, do. Therefore we say it is in different octave. Supposing that we had a re immediately after the do, this interval would be considered as compound interval. That is an interval that passes an octave. 2 notes or more of the same sound are called unison. See, for example, we have 2 crochets as shown on the screen, and the sound for the crochet is the leading note, do. This one would sound do, do. And we would say the 2 notes are in unison. Say, for example, we would have a case whereby 2 different people are singing the crotchets, which have the same note, that is the same sound. We would also say the notes are in unison. The notes are in unison. A second is an interval composed of 2 degrees. Say, for example, we have the solfege do and re. These are 2 degrees, and the 2 degrees form what we call or refer to as a second. Similarly, a third is an interval which is composed of 3 degrees. Say, for example, we have the solfege do, re, mi. This is an interval of a third, we have 3 degrees, that is do, re, and mi. Say we have re, mi, fa, still this one is an interval of a third. Even mi, fa, so, the degrees are 3, and this forms an interval of a third. Let's now look much more in details the intervals of seconds and thirds. A second can generally be a major or a minor. Also, it is rarely diminished or augmented. Don't worry about the terms. What we are just about to do is the classification of intervals. A major second is always composed of a distance of a tone. Remember we said a tone is composition of 2 semitones. A semitone plus a semitone makes a tone. And we said that a semitone is the smallest distance from one key to another on the keyboard. Say for example, we are moving from C, key C, to key C sharp. The distance is usually a semitone, that is a half. Let's say we move from C sharp to D major, this distance is still a semitone. Therefore, the interval from C to D is a major second because we have 2 semitones. Hence, the interval is major second. A minor second is usually composed of a semitone. Say for example, we are moving from C, key C major, to C sharp. Then the second will be a minor. The interval will be a minor second. Similarly, a third can be major or minor. Let's see the composition of a major third. When do we say that an interval is a major third? The distance or the interval is usually 1 tone and a half. 1.5. Say for example, we are moving from key C major to key C sharp. That is a half, a semitone. From key C sharp to D major is another semitone. And we have said 2 semitones forms a tone. So already here we have what we are referring to as a tone. Then moving from D to D sharp, we are adding another semitone. So already we have a tone and a semitone. Therefore, the whole of the interval will be or will form what we are referring to as a major third. The distance is tone plus semitone. That is a tone and a half. Combining 2 pitches or sounds together forms an interval. Remember, for an interval to be there, you must have either 2 or 3 or 4 notes. And it is good to note that intervals are elemental building blocks of scales, melodies, and what we refer to as chords. We shall come to see all about that. Let's see something about harmonic and melodic intervals. When we say a song is a melody or it is harmonized, what do we mean? Notes of harmonic interval occurs at the same time. For example, we can take a situation where one person is singing, let's say for example, a person is singing two meanings. Do, re. And another person at the same time is singing so far. These people are creating what we refer to as harmony. That is, their notes are occurring at the same time. When person 1 sings do, at the same time, person 2 sings so. Do, so. Person 1 can be either soprano, person 2 can be maybe alto. They are sounding the notes at the same time. For example, we can extract the interval from the first notes and see that the two notes are do and so. Therefore, the interval is a fifth, because from do to so we have re, mi, fa, three of them plus the do and so. This forms a fifth. We shall come to that much later. The main point is harmonic intervals, notes of harmonic intervals occurs at the same time. In the case of melodic interval, the notes will sound consecutively. Let's say for example, take an example of one person singing a chorus. So, 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 so for me, re. This particular person is singing set of notes consecutively. Don't mind about the writing, it is just for example. We can see that the notes are being sounded consecutively. That is, after so, we move to so, 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 fa, mi. So, 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 for me, re. And this forms what we refer to as a melodic interval. It is forming a certain melody of a song. And as we have said, we shall come to that much later in more details. Let's first of all see something to do about classification of intervals. How do we classify intervals? Of course, there are different kinds of intervals, and we now want to see the classifications of the intervals. Intervals are either consonant, and the word consonant simply means stable. So we have intervals are either stable or dissonant, and dissonant here means unstable. The opposite of stable is unstable, though yeah. So the opposite of consonant is dissonant. We say intervals are either consonant, that is stable, or dissonant. Dissonant intervals sound harsh, and they tend to resolve to the consonant ones. Take for example of a song like the one shown on the screen. When you read the notes, for example, you can check on my previous videos on how to read notes and interpret. For example, I can see my piece is in key E and the time signature is 4/4. So my leading note, that is do, begins at E. Confirm from my previous classes and you will get to understand all this. I will sing the soprano part up to this point and see how the dissonant and consonant has been used. So, mi, fa, sol, la, so, fa, mi, re. Let's write the dots down and see the intervals. So we have this mi, fa, sol, la, so, fa, mi, re. Let's sing the phrase for the alto. Do, re, do, ti, do, ti, do, ti. Let's write them as well. We will have this one, do, re, do, ti, do, ti. Let's consider this part. We can see that the interval between re and do, or do, re, is a second. It has 2 degrees. This interval has formed what we are referring to as dissonant. We have said dissonant intervals sound harsh, and they tend to resolve to consonant ones. Let's see how this one has resolved to a consonant interval. Don't worry so much. We are getting much more to the details of what we are talking about. So, we can see the last interval here between re and ti is a third, simply because between re and ti we have the sound do. That is re, do, ti, do, re. In between the re, ti, we have do in between. So that is an interval of a third. Don't worry so much, as we have said. An interval is labeled based on its size and quality. Let's see the classification of intervals by the size. And this is what we have exactly done when we said that the intervals can be labeled by the numeric name indicated by ordinal numbers. Ordinal numbers are 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can have second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. And you can note that eighth is also the octave. So we said that a second is an interval having 2 degrees. That means it is of size 2. It is a second. Third, we said it is an interval having 3 degrees. Therefore, this is what we are referring to as the classification of intervals by size, by their size. Given a score like the one on the screen, to show an interval or to determine the interval between notes, for example, these 2 notes, the interval between the 2 notes, the interval is determined by counting the total number of lines and spaces between the 2 notes. And this one, as we had included the first note and the last note, when counting, we also include the lines and spaces in which the note heads are on. So we include the line and spaces where the notes are lying. For example, the interval of the 2 notes over here, you can see the first note is on the first line in the G clef, the first line, and the second note is on the second line. Therefore, the interval will be, we include the line or space of the first note. We count that line or space as line, as number 1. Then we have this space 2, and this line where we have the other note 3. Therefore, it means we have 3 degrees here. That is 1, 2, 3. Hence, the interval is a third. A third. Take another example of the 2 notes over here. You can see the first note is on the first line. Then the second note over here is on the third space. Remember what we said in naming lines and spaces on our staff. We count from bottom upwards. That is space 1, space 2, space 3. The second note here is in space 3. Therefore, the interval, we have to include the first line and also the third space. And we shall count by beginning with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Therefore, the interval in these notes over here is a 6th. Remember, we have there is inclusive of the first line where the note head is line, and the third space where the second note is line. Therefore, the interval there will be a 6th. Let us now see the classification of intervals depending on the quality of the interval. This one specifies the kind of second, third, or fourth etc. which we have. And when we are talking of the kind, we are simply saying or talking about an interval being either perfect, which we denote by P, a major, it is denoted by capital M, a minor, which is denoted by small m, augmented, which is denoted by a positive sign. This is a positive sign, or plus, addition sign, or diminished, which is represented by a degree. We will write 10 degrees Celsius, that sign over there. This is what denotes a diminished interval. And this is how we classify intervals by quality. We will get into much details as we continue. Let's now get into details about consonant intervals. We have said consonant intervals are also intervals which we refer them to as stable intervals. How stable are they? We have just said dissonance, sound harsh. So with this one means consonant sounds sweet. How sweet? We'll see. One of the characteristics of consonant intervals, they are either perfect or imperfect. Yeah, that's the two divisions of consonant intervals. They are either perfect or imperfect. Perfect consonances, consonants or intervals, perfect intervals. Number 1, on the perfect consonants, they are the most stable class of intervals. And these intervals includes perfect unison, the interval which we classified according to size as unison. Unison will always sound good, therefore it forms a perfect consonant. Therefore we call the unison perfect. Remember, we have just added the word perfect to show that unison is a perfect unison or consonants. We have what we refer to as perfect fourth, and note the denotations for perfect unison is denoted by P1, perfect fourth, we have P4. A perfect fourth, we can have do, re, mi, fa. The two notes do and fa, when sounded simultaneously, they form what we refer to as a perfect fourth. We can also have re, mi, fa, la, re, mi, fa, so. The interval between re and so is a fourth. Therefore, we call the interval perfect fourth, since when you play the two notes simultaneously or consecutively or at the same time, you'll get a very sweet harmony there, which is a perfect fourth. We can also have mi, fa, sol, la. When you play mi and la, you also get a perfect fourth. Among others. That is second example of a perfect consonance. We also have perfect fifth, which is denoted as P5 as shown on the screen. We said a fifth is interval composed of 5 degrees. For example, do, re, mi, fa, sol. This is an interval of fifth. When you play the do and so consecutively, you'll also get a very nice harmony. That is do, so. Another example of re, mi, fa, sol, la. When you play re and la consecutively, you will also get a very nice harmony, and that one forms a perfect fifth, among others. The last perfect consonance we can have is perfect octave. Remember, an octave is composed of 8 degrees. Therefore, the representation will be P8 as shown on the screen. And when do in the lower octave is played consecutively with the do in the upper octave, they all form what we refer to as perfect octave. Remember, in some minutes ago, we have just said they also create a unison. Therefore, those are the 4 perfect consonances which we usually have. Let's see something to do about imperfect ones. Which are imperfect consonances? Although they are stable, they are also less stable than the perfect consonances. And they include thirds and sixths. They are only 2. We have thirds and sixths. An example of a third, we have do, re, mi. When you play do and mi, they form a third. Re, mi, fa. Re and fa forms a third. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la. Shown on the screen, they form an interval of a sixth. Re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti. Re and ti forms a sixth. One thing about the two, they can be major or minor. Some minutes back, we have just talked about minor and third. And a major third. Don't worry if you get confused about the major, how to determine major, minor. We are getting into more details, so you don't have to worry more. So those are the imperfect consonances we have. We have thirds and fifths, that is sixths, as shown on the screen. And both of them can be either major or minor. We have talked about dissonances, that is, consonances. Let's now come to the other classification of intervals, dissonances. These intervals includes all the seconds and sevenths. Remember seconds, we said we can have two notes, that is 2 degrees, like do and re. Do, re forms a second, and when these two notes are played consecutively or simultaneously at the same time, they produce very harsh sound. That's why in the example, we saw that the interval of a second resoluted to a third. Again, don't worry about the resolutions. The point is, all the seconds and sevenths form what we refer to as dissonances. An example of a seventh, we can have do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do and ti. Do, ti forms what we call a seventh, and we can still invert the do, ti to become ti, do. This one is still a seventh. We'll come to the inversions much later. The point is, all the seconds and sevenths form dissonances. And what do we mean when we say all the seconds and sevenths? We are saying both of them can be either major or minor. All minor and major seconds and sevenths form dissonances. That is, they produce very harsh sound, or they are unstable, and we have just said they resolute to the consonances. It doesn't matter whether it is a perfect consonance or imperfect consonance. So this is the first basic part or introduction to intervals, and in our next class we are going to get in more deeper into recognizing the intervals, and that will be our next subtopic. The next video will be recognizing and labeling intervals. See you in the next video. For the assignment, on the musical piece shown on the screen, state the interval between the notes in the first 3 bars. We have bar 1, bar 2, bar 3. Actually, you can state the intervals between the notes shown on the screen. You can also sing a melody and sing the harmony of the two voices. See you in the next video.